All right, well, it is 7 o'clock, and my name is Marie Bliston, and I'm the very proud chairperson here of the Cape May County Democratic Committee. This is our second Zoom presentation this year. We had decided that there were really important issues out there that needed facts, and that's what we're all about, to bring in the facts and talk about issues that are very pertinent to us here in Cape May County. And certainly this issue, very sadly, couldn't be more timely. So with that, I'm not going to, without further ado, let's say that, I'm going to turn this over to the chairperson of our leadership committee for the Cape May County Democrats. He and his committee have just done a phenomenal job to pull together our presenters and the topic that we're going to discuss tonight. We will ask you to keep yourselves muted until after all presentations are completed. Harvey will give you the cue when we will be able to have a Q&A. We won't get to everyone's questions, but we will get to as many as we can within the time span. We do ask you to write them down in case we don't get them to you in the chat box, and we will provide as many answers as we can to you following this presentation. So, Mr. Harvey Roach.
Welcome on behalf of the Cape May County Democratic Organization to our second in a series of Zoom presentations. June is Gun Violence Awareness Month. My name is Harvey Roach. I'm chair of the Cape May County Democratic Leadership Committee, and I will be your moderator tonight. Our goal is to bring timely issues to you without the noise that often obscures the facts. Our topic tonight is gun violence and the impact it has on our communities. A 28-year-old man, a combat veteran full of grievances, takes a handgun, easily purchased, and walks through his neighborhood shooting people. Some he knows, others that are simply in the line of fire. After less than 20 minutes, 13 people are dead. The shooter, hearing approaching sirens, retreats to his apartment where police capture him. We might hear this report today, tragic as it is, and it would register as just one more shooting. But on September 6, 1949, in the Kramer Hill neighborhood of Camden, New Jersey, the first mass shooting in U.S. history rocked people to their core. Howard Unruh, a native of Camden, was found to be criminally insane and spent the rest of his life confined. Our sense of shock has numbed over the intervening 75 years. As of May 31st, 2023, we have experienced 269 mass shootings for the year, resulting in 358 deaths and 1,035 woundings. On average, more than 116 Americans are killed with a gun daily. Most do not make the news. That is about 43,000 of us annually. There are about 393 million guns in the US. The National Shooting Sports Foundation estimates about 20 million of those are AR-style weapons. As of 2021, the US population was just over 332 million, some ratio. Of those 43,000 Americans who die annually, 57% are suicides, 39% are homicides, 1.3% are shootings by police, and 1.2% are unintentional shootings. The Kaiser Family Foundation has published a study that shows 51% of US adults say gun-related crimes, injuries, and death are a constant threat. Among Black and Hispanic adults, 62% say gun-related activities are either a major concern or a constant threat. The Centers for Disease Control says the leading cause for death for kids and teens are guns. In 2020, guns killed more people under the age of 19 than car crashes, ODs, or cancer. It should be easier in every state for someone in crisis to get mental health care than a weapon. The individual sorrows and losses last forever. There is a collective post-traumatic stress that settles in our community. We make every effort to cope with the sorrow, to try to make sense of the senseless. Out of tragedy comes the promise of new beginnings. The Sandy Hook Elementary school shootings in 2012 were a bleak example of horror unleashed. Yet 11 years later, there are 26 playgrounds, one for each of the 21st graders and 6 educators who died that day. The Benjamin Wheeler Playground in Ocean City, New Jersey, built in 2014 by our New Jersey Firefighters Mutual Benevolent Association, with help from the New Jersey Patrolmen's Benevolent Association, the New Jersey Education Association, and Giordano Construction, reminds us of the devastation families, extended families, and whole communities experience because of gun violence. The lovely playground in Ocean City is a source of light where victims are remembered and honored. They are also a call to action that we can and must come together across our communities so that common sense and solutions and effective resources are put in place for the safety of all. Whether 1 or 20 are lost, the families and our communities suffer. The thoughts and prayers solution is just not working. The Cape May County Democratic Organization knows the importance of having informed citizens. This is not a partisan issue. This is a life and death issue. If you have questions for our presenters this evening, please put them in the chat box and we will get to as many as possible after the presentation. It is my pleasure to introduce our 2 guests for tonight. Charlene Overter has served since 2015 as a state survivor membership lead with Moms Demand Action and continues to be the survivor lead for her local group. Charlene also serves as a volunteer peer connector with Everytown for Gun Safety and speaks with other survivors across the country, helping them on their grief journey. In this way, Charlene honors her sister Diane, who was killed in 1986. Carla Reyes-Miller is a survivor lead for Moms Demand Action, South Jersey, and volunteers for Everytown for Gun Safety Survivor Network. In honor of her 19-year-old son, Kevin, who you can see over her left shoulder, who was shot to death in 2011, Carla attended Rowan College, was an honor student, and won the President's Award for Achievement and Leadership and Service. Carla will use her degree to make a difference in the lives of those who are struggling. Ladies, we welcome you, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Carla Reyes-Miller, and I'm not going to apologize if I get emotional. Kevin's anniversary is right around the corner. So again, I will not apologize, but I want to thank each one of you for taking time to be here tonight to hear my story. Well, my name is Carla Reyes-Miller, and I would like to share my story to bring awareness to the effects of gun violence within our communities and our nation. You see, I'm a mother who lost a child to gun violence. And on June 8th, 2011, someone made a senseless decision to take my son's life. I want to share a little bit about Kevin. I called him my special K. Kevin was born in the city of Camden, my 3rd child of 5 children, 4 boys and 1 girl. And we raised our children never to allow where you are from to dictate who you will become. Kevin was just an average kid that loved and played football for St. Peter's and went on to play for Woodrow Wilson High School in Camden. He did well in school and graduated from Camden County Technical School in Pennsauken, New Jersey, with an achievement award in carpentry on my birthday, June 23rd, class of 2010. After graduating, he chose to work for a family-owned hardware store in Camden known as Carton Hardware. And Kevin had a smile that would light up a room and a heart of compassion for others. On Wednesday evening, June 8th, I had the opportunity to see him and just engage in mother-son conversation And he happened to share that he was going to take a young lady out to dinner for her birthday. And I suddenly responded, oh boy, who is she? And he went on to say, no, Mom, she's just a friend. She lives in a messed up household and I want to show her something better. I couldn't argue with that. That's what we taught our children, never to look down on anyone, but to the best you can to make a difference in someone's life. I gave him advice and reminded him that if he ever got in trouble, to call on the name of Jesus. He went on to say, Mom, I carry him in my heart. He proceeded to give me a hug and a kiss and said, I love you, Mom. I left the home and headed to church. Hours later, my daughter-in-law arrived and she went to tell me that one of my children was in the hospital, but she wasn't sure who or what had happened. She just believed that they may have gotten hit riding their bike. But arriving to the hospital, I ran into the emergency room and the staff person happened to be a childhood friend. And she was excited to see me, but she also asked what I was doing there. And I told her that I was told that my son was there. And her countenance changed and she went on to ask me if it was Kevin Miller, and I told her yes. She said, I'm so sorry. Kevin was shot. And he's in the back getting a CAT scan. They need to determine where the bullet traveled in his body and prepare him for surgery. So hours later, the surgeon came out to tell me that Kevin didn't make it. That the bullet pierced into the center of his heart and that there was nothing they could do. I fell to my knees crying out to God. Oh, my baby boy. I just spoke to him just hours earlier. How can this happen? What happened? Why? I wanted to see him and I begged to see him and the hospital staff refused. And I made it clear that I was not going to leave the hospital until I saw my son. The detectives assigned from the homicide unit allowed my children, his father and I, to see my baby boy. My special K. I will never forget the teardrop that was on the corner of your right eye. As I wiped his tear, I told him how much I loved him and that I was so sorry this happened to him. The young lady's ex-boyfriend made a senseless decision to take Kevin's life, shooting him with one bullet to his heart, even while his arms were raised up in surrender position. Kevin was only 19. I can't even begin to share how this loss has changed our lives and our family dynamics. But I can relate to the breathtaking pain that many families are facing today who have lost their loved ones due to gun violence. Today, I am Kevin's voice. We must stand in unity to make a difference in our communities and in our nation. We must stand for stricter gun laws and intense background checks, searching for signs of patterns of emotional behavior, allowing juvenile records to be disclosed for any individual who applies for a gun. You see, the person who took my son's life had a juvenile record that listed anger, aggression, and assault with a weapon. And then he was 23 years old when he killed my special K. If the system would have addressed the mental health condition, maybe, just maybe, Kevin would still be with us today. When I look at the painful memories and continue to relive these moments during family events, and he's missing his birthday, Thanksgiving being one of his favorite holidays, Christmas and the anniversary on June 8th, I will always lean on the Lord, who has been my refuge and my strength and my very present help in times of trouble. You see, it was an evil act that took Kevin's life, but I stand on God's promises that carry me through it all. Today we are here. Everytown, moms demand and students demand to be the voice of those who can't share their story because their lives were cut short due to gun violence. We are standing in unity to be heard, demanding gun sense in America. Thank you.
Thank you, Carla. And Carla and I have spoken together before many times, and this is usually when we go over and we hug each other. So Carla, here's my hug for you, and please know that your son is in my heart, especially on June 8th. Thank you, everyone, for giving me the honor of being invited here. I am Charlene Mokas Hoveter, and like Carla, I am a gun violence survivor. I'm going to begin with a few interesting facts. In 1967, Jane Mansfield was killed when her car ran under the rear end of a tractor trailer. And since then, all trailers have what's called a DOT bar at the rear to keep cars from going under them. In 1982, 7 people died when the Tylenol packaging was tampered with. Since then, it takes, as you know, practically a PhD, rocks and a sharp object to now get into a bottle of pills. In 1995, a bombing used a certain kind of fertilizer, some solution grade ammonium nitrate, and it killed 168 people. So the government imposed severe restrictions on the purchase of that fertilizer. In 2001, one person attempted to blow up a plane with a shoe bomb. And since then, you know, all of us have to go through the scanning with our shoes off. Harvey has told you the number of people that have died from gun violence this year. It kills, on average, a minimum of 115 people a day. But now, apparently, the problem can only be solved with thoughts and prayers. We're going to start with just a little bit of talking about some of the types of shootings that are on our mind a lot. And the first one, of course, are the mass shootings. I think it's important for us to realize that mass shootings, and it's really so important to let our children know, they're less than 1% of all shootings. But they don't have to be an inevitable element of our American life. Like all other tragic forms of gun violence, we can prevent them through some common sense policy solutions. We're not the only country with mental illness or with domestic violence or with video games or hate-filled ideologies. But do you know that our homicide rate is 26 times higher than any other comparable country to the United States? 1 in 4 mass shooters killed were those, I'm sorry, 1 or 4 mass shooters where there were 4 or more people killed were legally prohibited from possessing firearms at the time of the shooting. 32% of shooters exhibited dangerous warning signs prior to the shooting. From 2015 to 2022, shootings with assault weapons were used, resulted in more than twice as many people being killed. And 46% of mass shootings are domestic violence related. How can we solve this? We can work toward it with background checks on all gun sales, with extreme risk laws, also called red flag laws. If you know someone who has a gun and it seems like they are in a state that's not healthy for them, the gun can be taken away. We can prohibit people with dangerous histories from having guns. How about the simple one of prohibiting assault weapons? And also prohibiting that hardware that you can put on a gun that makes it an automatic weapon. So many things that can be done. Annually, nearly 4,000 children and teens are shot, I'm off of mass shootings, and killed. And 15,000 are wounded. That's an average of 53 American children a day. Gun violence shapes the lives of children. If they witness it, if they know somebody who's shot, or they live in fear of the next shooting. Children are harmed in numerous ways when they are part of gun violence. They go to drugs, they go to alcohol, there's Great Depression, there's anxiety, there's PTSD. It erodes their physical health. And of course, it hurts their school performance. Intimate domestic violence, intimate partner violence impacts abusers with firearms. If a woman lives in a home or a man lives in a home with an abuser, they are 5 times more likely to kill them if there is a gun present. When I was in Everytown fellowship training, I was advised to look up the shooting for that particular day. And in my naivety and ignorance, I was skeptical. But you know, I looked up recent shootings, and the truth is I don't have time to list them all. Today is June 6th, 157th day of 2023, and we have had, as Harvey said, 269 mass shootings. That's over 18,000 people who have died. Well, I mean, that's the mass shootings. Total people dying from gun violence is over 18,000 right now. What number becomes too great for our country to tolerate? This month, we honor gun violence survivors, and I wish I wasn't among them. A week and a half ago, we remembered the Uvalde shooting in which 19 children and 2 adults were killed. Back in September, I read that when the surviving children of the Uvalde shooting returned to school, they were greeted by emotional dogs. And I thought, wow, that's really nice to have those dogs there for them. And then I got very upset with myself. That was nice. What would be nice is if our children in our country could go to school and not be afraid, not practice active shooter drills, not suffer from anxiety or worry if they're going to see their families at the end of the day. It would be nice if parents could send their children off to school for the day and not hold their breath for hours until the children return. I want to tell you why I am here today and why I am a member of the club that nobody wants to join, the survivors. I was born in Chicago, one of 7 children. My parents were called, and this is a bit of levity here, my parents were called Pickles and Bing. Now, my mom was called Pickles because as a child, she sat outside her stoop in the city eating pickles. The little boy down the block started calling her that, and it stuck. My dad was called Bing because he looked like Bing Crosby, and he had a beautiful singing voice. Some of my favorite memories are of my dad and his sisters around the kitchen table, singing songs and harmonizing. As a side note, I did inherit his love of singing, but to the distress of my family, not his voice. My sister Diane was the mother of 4 girls and the true rock of our family. She was beautiful. She was very spiritual. She was great fun and just really a truly good person. She had a master's degree in midwifery, and she was head of the birthing unit at the then Cook County Hospital. She came to visit in New Jersey in June of 1986, and we did all of those Jersey things. We went to the beach. We had ice cream on the boardwalk. We ate pork roll, egg, and cheese on a hard roll, and we visited New York. But the main reason that Diane came was to talk to my brother, who lives in New Hope, and to me about our parents' upcoming 50th wedding anniversary in May, what we were going to do and how we were going to take care of everything. We were all very excited and we were looking forward to the event. But Diane never made it to that anniversary celebration. Less than 1 month later, back home, Diane was on her way to work and stopped at her church, which was her practice. On that morning of July 19th, she was apparently accosted and shot and killed. The day that Diane was killed, my family was literally spread across the United States. We live coast to coast and in between, and my families were traveling. When the police came to the door to the house that morning, only my youngest sister was there. This is what happens in the immediate aftermath of a shooting. Imagine the police showing you a picture of a beloved family member with a bullet in their head. My sister had to identify Diane with the bullet in her head. When my parents came home, my mother and my brother-in-law went to the morgue to identify her firstborn. She returned with Diane's bloody glasses and asked me to clean them. My hands were shaking as I sobbed and washed off her blood, thinking, I have her glasses. Why can't I have her? To this day, 36 years later, I am still so aggrieved. Diane never saw her daughters walk down the aisle, nor did she have the joy of holding a grandchild in her arms. And my dad, he never sang again. And I have been reticent since for a family picture to be taken. I realized, it wasn't long ago that I realized this after all these years, that the reason I was reticent was because my entire family was not there. Imagine if it was your loved one, your mother, father, sister, brother, and child, how your life would be changed in an instant. Our lives become before and after, how you are never entirely whole, how there is an empty chair at gatherings, how suddenly you find yourself crying because the pain of gun violence does not go away. When a Sandy Hook or a Parkland or a Uvalde happen, it tears at the nation's hearts, and rightly so. But we cannot become numb to the more than 150 deaths and 200 wounded daily from gun violence in our country. For each family, they go through the same grief, the same horror and pain that families of these horrific mass shootings endure. I am stunned and appalled and grief-stricken that gun violence has become the #1 cause of death for children in the United States. That's right, #1. And if you are a child of color or teen, you are 14 times more likely to die by gun than your white counterparts. When Diane was murdered, I was outraged at the lack of outrage at her death. It's not a normal death. It's not from illness. It's not a freak accident. It's not from old age. This was an intentional killing. Our sister was stolen then, and from all the more than 28,083 days. When we hear of an intentional shooting, we should all be outraged. I am outraged about Kevin. We should be outraged for every single person who is intentionally killed. President Lincoln had the Declaration of Independence on his desk. He considered it to be the founding document of our nation. And it is from this document that he quoted at Gettysburg, that we have the right from our Creator to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, with life being #1. But apparently, too many others, especially the gun lobby, do not agree. Their interpretation of the Second Amendment is more important than our lives, and our children especially are paying the price for that. The soul of our nation is stained with the blood of innocence. We must fight for the lives of our children, for the lives of our loved ones. We must do what it takes so that we are safe in schools, in churches, in temples, in supermarkets, in nightclubs, walking down the street, in our homes. Right now, if you have your cell phone with you, and I bet all of you have it there near you, you could text the word honor, HONOR, to 64433. That's 64433. And Everytown will let you know how you can join this fight. One thing is to join your local Moms Demand Actions. We are mothers and others. We have many men who are part of our organization. Ask your schools to present our Be Smart program for safe storage of guns. We're all gathered here today because thoughts and prayers are not working. If you have not yet experienced gun violence in your life, you're blessed indeed. 58% of American adults have, or someone they know has experienced this. My fear is that one day you will be in that percentage, and I don't want you in this club. I'm going to end my talk with a poem from Amanda Gorman that's called Hymn for the Hurting. Everything hurts. Our hearts shadowed and strange, minds made muddied and mute. We carry tragedy, terrifying and true, and yet none of it is new. We knew it as home, as horror, as heritage. Even our children cannot be children, cannot be. Everything hurts. It's a hard time to be alive and even harder to stay that way. We're burdened to live out these days while at the same time blessed to outlive them. This alarm is how we know we must be altered, that we must differ or die, that we must triumph or try. Thus, while hate cannot be terminated, it can be transformed into a love that lets us live. May we not just grieve, but give. May we not just ache, but act. May our signed right to bear arms never blind our sight from shared harm. May we choose our children over chaos. May another innocent never be lost. Maybe everything hurts, our hearts shadowed and strange, but only when everything hurts, may everything change. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Carla and Charlene, for not only your moving stories, but the grace with which you've brought us in to share what you go through on a daily basis. You're right, it's a club that no one wants to join, and when you're sucked into it, you have no other option except to live it day to day. In another life as a police officer, I was on the other side of that conversation, giving that horrible news to people. So I've had a chance to see the shock and the tears, and you wonder as years go by, you know, how are those folks getting along? And I know it's never good. So we do appreciate you taking us into that world to tell us a little bit about what goes on. You did mention the text that we can get information about what Everytown does, which is great. But can you talk a little bit more about what folks who are not survivors do with either Moms Demand Action or Everytown? Because a lot of times we just don't know what to do. I mean, we hear about these things on the news and we are outraged, but you know, what can we do? What do folks in your groups do? What kind of activities are you guys involved in? What do you involve other members of the public in? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Carla, I'll go first and then you second. First of all, the vast majority, I'd say 98% of Moms Demand Action are not survivors. And I think that is absolutely wonderful. I always tell them how grateful I am for all that they do and how passionate they are when they have been blessed not to suffer from gun violence. Everytown does have something separate called the Everytown Survivor Network. And if there are survivors here, you can just go onto the everytown.org website and type in survivors, and you can become a part of that network where the network will send you information of things that are offered for you to help you. Carla, you want to talk more about what Moms does? Unmute.
Oh, wow. Well, I have to tell you that it is an honor to be part of a group of men and women who have a heart to just want to bring awareness. And June 2nd is one of the main events where everyone gets together and we wear orange, and not only in honor of family survivors like myself, but just to see how real they are. And many of them are just volunteers and really have a heart for families like mine and Charlene's. So there's different groups that go out in the different communities and counties. So, but like Charlene mentioned, is truly a blessing to be part of Everytown and Moms. It's basically the same. Their heart's desire to want to bring awareness to the community, awareness, and to actually be there for families. That's truly the blessing, to be heard. And they don't quit. We have a strong group. They have a very strong group and leadership. And I'm thankful for that.
Some of the things that I'm going to add on to what Carla said, some of the things we do is hold events such as a Wear Orange event, where we do have various speakers come in and speak to people. We write lots of postcards. The main thing, the main thrust of Moms Demand Action is to encourage legislation that will aid gun violence prevention. So we also speak to our various representatives. We have a program called the Be Smart program, which is for adults, and that is an acronym, and it stands for Safe Storage, Modeling Your Behavior. Ask the question if your children go somewhere, like, do you have a gun and is it safely stored? And I don't remember what the R&T stand for, but it's all about safe storage of guns, and it is for adults, and it's an absolutely wonderful program. We give out information about what people can do. We ask people to pick up the phone and call your legislators, and wow, there's so many things that, when you get to be my age, you forget stuff. So I'm going to stop there.
Okay. Are there
Covered it all, Charlene, thank you.
are there chapters in all counties in South Jersey, or are they regionalized? Moms Demand Action chapters.
They're in various counties of New Jersey. Right. There is one in Atlanta County now.
In Atlanta County, okay. So that's the closest one for us here in Cape May County.
Unless, of course, Harvey, you would like to begin one, and we can help you with that.
Well, there may be, who knows, that may happen.
Okay, good.
Okay. Just to bring us back to reality, as I was sitting here making notes, my phone alert went off, and it just came over CNN at a high school graduation in Richmond, Virginia. 7 kids were shot. Thank goodness none were fatalities, but the police have 2 in custody. But it was at a theater where graduation exercises were taking place, and seven students were shot. So this is something that never goes away, no matter what we try to do, or how much effort we put into it. It's not going to go away until we can find a way to change the laws, and it's something that we have to work on. So
Harvey, if I can, I'm going to interrupt just to say that Judy McKenzie has put in the chat box the website for Be Smart. Okay. So if anybody wants more information that I poorly gave you, it's right there.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. It's besmartforkids.org. That's great. Besmartforkids.org.
And Chris is telling us what all the letters stand for, which is secure all the guns, model responsible behavior, ask about the presence. The R is recognize the role of guns in suicide. You know, if someone tries to commit suicide with, I'm sorry, if someone tries to die by gun, they're 98% effective, as opposed to taking pills. There's no going back from suicide by gun. And so, and the other thing is the T is tell your friends about Be Smart. Sorry, Harvey, I don't have
Alright.
it in there.
Have you been into schools to make presentations?
Not I am not part of the Be Smart team, but some of the other groups have those Be Smart groups, but it is for adults. So it has to go to PTAs or police or an organization like yours. We could do a Be Smart presentation.
Okay.
Harvey, can I butt in here for a second? We were talking about mental health before, and I don't know if you are aware of it, but there is a pilot program going on right now. Middle Township and Lower Township are part of the pilot program where they are going to be partnering a police officer with mental health, so that if they get a call, a police call, and it's involving a client, a person that has a mental health issue, they can call on this mental health professional to come to the scene and try and calm it down. Instead of just taking that person directly to jail, they will take that person to another place where they can check him out, make sure that he's safe, and that maybe calm the situation down and get help for that person, rather than just throwing him in a jail and forgetting about him.
I'm so happy to hear that.
I don't know how it's working out. It just started, but I am following it to see if it works. Hopefully it will work down here. And hopefully if it does, it'll be spread out throughout New Jersey.
I hope so. Thank you.
Me too.
Thank you, Deborah. That's actually something that I brought to the attention of the judge during the time of I didn't share with you guys, but they rescinded the murder charge because of a Miranda right.
Right.
So all the other charges were given to him except for the murder. And I did mention to the court with respect that if they would have given him help when he was a juvenile, instead of allowing the age of 18 for the charges to be what I say hidden under, a carpet, if they would have helped him with mental health and some type of counseling while he was a juvenile, maybe, Kevin would still be here. And I'm thankful that the judge accepted that from me. And when he is to be transferred to New Jersey, they will be making sure that he does get some type of counseling, mental health behavior. I mean, there's some time better than none. I'm grateful that the judge and the system heard my voice to that. And even though it was painful to hear that the charge was being dropped. So thank you for that. We need that in New Jersey.
Okay. All right. Ladies, do you have any other thoughts that you wanted to wrap up with? Carla, Charlene?
Thank you.
No, do we have any other questions? Carla has the little satisfaction knowing who killed her son and perhaps why, and the shooter of my sister has never been found.
That's got to be one thing that's just will always leave a hole in your heart, not knowing. I'm sure.
And honestly, even knowing the, going through the trial, the 3 years,
Yeah.
I thought it would be closure, but it's never closure.
There is one more resource that it was brought up in the chat box. There is one more resource that I wanted to mention, education about how red flag laws work. And we hear that mentioned a lot on the news, and you may or may not understand what red flag laws are. They're very effective. If you don't understand them, there's a resource that you can go to. It's onethingyoucando.org. And that's a site that you could check out to find out about red flag laws. Those are basically designed to somebody that has some kind of mental health issue or some other issue going on that would preclude them from being fit to own a gun or purchase a gun. And that issue is brought to the attention of the authority that issues the permit to purchase the gun. And that would stop them from getting the permit or from getting a permit to carry a concealed weapon. And one of the hot button issues right now in the states are these concealed carry permits. And the recent decision by the Supreme Court has changed the law in New York, and it's in the process of potentially changing the law in New Jersey. And it's going to allow more people to carry concealed weapons in more places that before you never would have thought someone would have had a concealed weapon, such as a park or a bar. So it really is important for all of us as good citizens to educate ourselves on these issues, because we can be drawn into this just by being in the wrong place at the wrong time. So this is all good information. That's what our goal is here. So.
And Harvey, on the everytown.org webpage, it lists all kinds of things that people can do and tells you everything that Everytown is trying to do. And the same thing with the Moms Demand Action website.
Janet Riley just had a question. It's a good question. Do you feel that people don't march by the thousands or millions to insist on gun reform because they're afraid of being shot doing so? Let me just give my answer real quick, and then I'll throw it open to Carla and Charlene. I think it's more apathy than anything else, than being afraid of being shot. I think that unless this issue touches you, you're not really affected by it. You're not passionate about it, or you're not as concerned about it. And I think that's why they're not marching by the thousands to try and affect change. But I really feel a sea change with this issue because of the number of shootings that we see daily. So that's my opinion on that. Charlene, Carla?
Carla, I'll go. I agree with you that a lot of it is apathy. I wonder for myself, would I be involved if I wasn't a survivor? We tend to think as human beings, this isn't going to happen to us. I mean, when it happened to me, my family, when it happened, you're absolutely in shock. Like, this doesn't happen. This doesn't happen to us. It doesn't happen to people that we know. And of course, it does, and it happens to more and more people. So I'm thinking that apathy is definitely one part of it. I think that fear may be true in some states. I know that there have been events that are held by moms where there are people across the street from the NRA carrying assault weapons. So as a way of intimidation. So a little bit of that fear is probably present at some time. But I think a lot of it is it hasn't touched you, which is why, again, I am so proud of those Moms Demand Action people. Carla, I'm sorry, Carla, I jumped in there.
No, don't be, because it is true. I'm living in the city of Camden and raising my 5 children, and hearing about so many incidents. It really, my heart went out to families, but not until I lost mine, where I felt, you know what, I have to be his voice, because they may have taken his life, but they will never take his memories. And if I can help a family, or if I can encourage each one of you just to be a part of an organization that is making a difference and standing to make a difference and to be heard. And I would encourage you to do so. I'm also part of Everytown, and I was honored to and privileged to go to Washington, D.C. And I met with our senator and shared my story with him. And I know New Jersey has stricter gun laws in certain areas, but just to see that this gentleman sat and listened to my story and wants to make a difference and wants to stand along each one of us, is truly a blessing. I won't get into details, but I just want to say that I teared up and so did he. So, and it's not a political party. It's the person, it's one's heart, So I would just like to encourage each one of you, just dial, text that number, text it and become part of an organization that can be someone's voice, even if you're just walking, believing that there can be change, because there can.
The interesting part of this whole thing, if you believe in polls, most of the people in the United States are against, the guns itself. They want something done about carrying guns in public, etc. Now, if you believe these polls and the amount of people that are against it, you would think that if all these people stood up and, like somebody said, did a march on Washington, whatever, wherever it would be, something hopefully would get done. But it amazes me that everybody says, oh, I'm against it, but then you turn around and they don't do anything about it. And I think somebody said apathy, and that's a very good word. I worry, fortunately, but for the grace of God, I'm not affected as you women are, but I have 2 grandchildren and they're in Texas. And one is starting school, and it's really a scary thing for me to think about my grandkids going to school every day, and hopefully that they get home in one piece, But thank you too for being here. You touched my heart, and I did text that number, so I did join. So God bless you both, and thank you.
All right.
One thing I wanted to mention, one of the most powerful things I've ever participated in was the March for Our Lives down in DC, when the Parkland students organized that. It was absolutely amazing. Very, very moving. I wish that there would be more of them. I also joined the Moms Demand Action. There were a couple busloads of us that went down to DC just before that legislation was signed last year. So I think Moms has a great organizing system and will help people get to places. If you want to make your voice heard, they'll help you make it heard. So it's definitely the organization to join if you want to speak out about it. The only other thing I wanted to mention to you, Charlene, aren't you involved in the Soul Shot Portrait Gallery?
Both of us are, Carla and I. Well, we were with the previous one for a year, that particular gallery exhibit, and that exhibit is now finished, and they have another one coming. This was Diane's portrait that was done by an artist for the Soul Shot, and it's coming to Stockton.
That's why I was bringing it up, because most of the
and when is
people on
it
this
happening,
call-
Carolyn? Do you know the dates?
It's in July, so it's the end of this month. I think Judy knows.
Yeah,
they're going to be getting it set up the end of June. So during the month of July, this exhibit that Charlene can tell you guys about will be there, and it is absolutely amazing what they do. It would be wonderful for anybody that's interested to go and pay tribute to these people who have lost their lives to senseless gun violence.
the Soul Shot exhibit was begun by a woman by the name of Laura Madeline, who just was so touched by the number of deaths and realized that numbers are one thing, but they represent people and loved ones. And so she was able to gather artists who donate their talent, speak to a survivor such as Carla or me about the person who died, and we send a picture, etc. And then that painting is created and then hung out for, hung for an exhibit. And it's very touching to go. And the stories for each of those people who are on the walls is there next to the painting. And so you become very aware, if you're not before, you're very aware that these are not numbers. This is a person with a life, with a family who was shot and killed. It's wonderful. Go see it.
All right, that's great. That's in July. We'll look for that. All right, thank you very much. Thanks to everyone. On behalf of Marie Bliston, Chair of the Cape May County Democratic Organization, I want to thank you all for joining us tonight for our second Zoom presentation. There's so many things that demand your time these days. We're so appreciative that you chose to spend the past few minutes with us learning a little bit more about such a critical topic. I want to especially thank Carla Reyes-Miller and Charlene Hoveter for sharing their deeply personal stories about their loved ones and about their day-to-day efforts combating gun violence in their communities and beyond. This is what we as good citizens can choose to do as well: work within our own communities, effect changes where we live to make a difference. Please follow us on our Facebook page and at www.cmcdems.com for more upcoming information about events and our next Zoom presentation. Thanks to our leadership committee for all your efforts, and a special thank you to our superb technical crew tonight. Good night from Cape May County. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you,
Good
ladies.
night, everyone.
Night, everybody.
Thank you, Harvey.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.